to our session today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Tim Stelzer from the University of Illinois, who's going to be talking to us about iClicker use and student response systems in your classroom. So we welcome him and thank you for being here.
All right, thanks. Great. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody that came out. I know it's a little bit rainy today, but the whole thing's going to go a lot better. I know that we're being broadcast also. I'm not sure what it's going to look like on the broadcast, but hopefully for everybody in here, it's a good experience. And how? Yeah. Okay. Wow, it's like magic.
You can talk to him, and he can change that.
I can talk to him. The screen. Okay, fabulous. So my name is Tim Stelzer. As I said, I do high energy particle theory at the University of Illinois, but probably more importantly, to also do physics education research. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about here with the clicker system. And so I think everybody local here has a clicker, and I think it's impossible to listen to me until you play with it. All right, so the first thing I want to do is let's play with this. And what you need to do is you need to turn it on. So that's the button on the very bottom. The blue light comes on. That means success. You got power to this thing. And then read the statement here. Which statement best reflects your familiarity with classroom response systems from, I've never heard of them, to I could be giving this talk, and then press the appropriate letter A through E. And if you look at your clicker, when you press that button, you should get a little green light just for maybe 1 second or a half a second. And what that's telling you is that you voted, not only that you transmitted your vote up here to the base, but actually the base got it and sent a message back saying that you pushed A, B, or C. So that green light means that everything's set. I have the information. And then I can display that for you with a histogram, and you see we have kind of a nice distribution from not having heard of them all the way to one person that could be giving the talk, and that's good. So if something happens to me, they'll have to fill in. And in fact, if you want to, you can change your vote right now. The way the system works, you change it, you'll keep getting a green light, and you can even watch the histogram adjust as you jump around. Okay, somebody decided they didn't want to give the talk. So this is the way the system works, and you can keep changing it. All I'm going to display on the histogram is your last vote, and that's what we would discuss. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop collecting votes. You'll see at the top there it says done. And so now if you try to vote, you'll get a small electrical shock. No, not really. But you will get a red light flashing at you, and that says that I'm not listening to your vote, I didn't get your vote, and I never will. And so you can keep pushing or telling me to turn the voting on again. So that's the way the system works. You got the basic idea. So what I thought I'd do today is start talking a bit, just sort of the general motivation for why you might consider using clickers in your classroom as a general topic. That's sort of the first part of the talk. And the second part was going to go through these individual things and sort of specific guidelines for what this would mean in your classroom and what you should think about like explicitly when you are putting this into your class. So the basic motivation for this, and the reason we got involved in it, is this idea of peer instruction. So Eric Mazur came to the University of Illinois and told us about this idea of peer instruction, and we liked it a lot. The basic idea is that you're giving your lecture, and the students are, of course, listening. And what you do is instead of speaking the whole time, you'll stop, you'll break up your lecture, you give the students a chance to talk to each other about a question, and then give feedback to you. And of course, the point of the clickers is a mechanism for getting that feedback. And this is just a great idea for so many things. Everything we know about the way people learn and the foundations, this fits right in. And so explicitly, one thing it does is it resets the student's clock. So we know that students can pay attention for just a limited amount of time. So maybe it's like 7 minutes, 10 minutes. We can debate that a little bit. But there's a short amount of time, relatively short amount of time compared to an hour lecture, that they can really focus and get information in. And this isn't a negative statement about students. Oftentimes people think it's a Generation X or it's MTV or Generation Y. And it's not that at all. At Illinois, we like to say students are a lot like people. Okay? And people can only pay attention for that long. It's just human nature. In fact, you may be experiencing it now. You know, it's been about 7 minutes, I think, and you're trying to pay attention. I'm trying to be entertaining, but it gets hard. This resets the students' clocks, gives you another 7 minutes with them. Feedback to students. As professors, we're always saying brilliant things to our students, well thought out, and that's great. And the students actually are hearing brilliant things in general. They really are. The thing that you don't know is if those are the same, right? What you're saying and what they are hearing aren't always the same. And so you give feedback to the student. When you put a question up there for them to think about, you're saying, look, if you're with me, if you're understanding what I'm saying, maybe you can't get this question right, but you can think intelligently about it, right? And so there's a chance to do that. The student can say, oh yeah, this is easy, I'm all over it, or oh my gosh, where did that come from? I'm completely lost. Feedback to the instructor, of course, when students, you know, based on their discussion or their responses, you get a feeling for, you know, are they with you? How are you doing? Do you need to review this topic some more, or can you jump forward? Promoting discussion. So obviously the peer instruction has the students talking to each other, and you might think, oh, you know, I don't want people talking in my class, right? Lots of times we try to stop that. But in fact, talking is a great way to learn, and I think a lot of us have probably had this experience where you've been struggling with a difficult problem in your office for your research or something, and you can't figure it out, and so you get up and you go over to your colleague's office, you go in the door, you explain the problem to them, and you're halfway through the explanation of the problem, and then you know the answer, right? And you go back to your office. And there's just something different. When you talk, you're using different neurons or something, and so it's a different activity, and it's a great way to learn and to understand things. And the last one, accountability, is, you know, this we have to be careful with, but basically it's a chance, if you value students coming and participating in your class, if you use one of these systems, it's an easy way to give them credit for doing that, which is otherwise difficult to do. And this, if you do it properly, the students actually do appreciate that. So those are all the ideas, and you know, they're pretty straightforward, good learning things, and the clickers or peer instruction promotes all of these. So let's do a sample here, and we can test some. I guess I got to give you a little bit of physics instruction to start out, and that is with mirrors. When light rays bounce off flat mirrors, the angle of incidence, the angle that it comes in at, is equal to the angle of reflection. And so here's the scenario. A person is getting ready to give a presentation. You know, perhaps it's going to be webcast or something, so they want to look good. And at their hotel, they have a mirror that does not go all the way to the ground. It's not a full-length mirror. And so when looking in the mirror, the lowest point this person can see is her knees. You see that's at the bottom of the mirror there. And so she can't see her shoes to see how they look with the outfit. And so what she's going to do is she's going to take a step closer to the mirror. She's going to stand up straight. She's going to take a step closer to the mirror. And what I want you to think about, what's going to happen when she steps closer to the mirror, is she going to be able to see just above her knees now, not even her knees? Will she see exactly at her knees? Did it not make any difference? Or will she be able to see lower, below her knees, you know, getting closer to her shoes? So what I want you to do right now is actually talk to the person near you. I'll help you pair up a little bit, and then go ahead and vote on what you think the correct answer is for this. And so I'm gonna, you two can talk together, and the benefit of the physicists, you guys are a natural pair. A trio is good, a duo, and another duo. So once you've decided, I want you to go ahead and vote. Click the appropriate button, A, B, or C, whichever you think is most likely to happen. I can watch results coming in here. Give you just a couple more seconds So go ahead. Get your vote in. Did you already push? Go ahead, dude. Get your vote in. I want to count as many of you as I can here. All right. And now I'm going to stop accepting votes. So if you try to vote now, you should get a red flashing light, which means I'm not listening anymore. And we can look at the result. And all right, we have a pretty nice distribution. Everything's well represented above her knee. That makes a lot of sense, sort of, because you're closer, so more shallow angle. Or it could be that below her knee. That also seems reasonable as you look at how the geometry plays out. And what you might be surprised to find out that the answer is, in fact, just at her knee. It doesn't change what you're able to see. So this is an actual question that I use when I'm teaching mirrors to my pre-med students, it turns out. And they, like you know, they're often quite surprised by the result. And to actually do it, you know, is a little bit of geometry to see that the two things cancel out exactly. But it works nicely. So one thing I hope that you noticed when you were doing it is that you know, maybe you're a little tired of listening to me or paying attention. When you stop, you get to talk to somebody. It's a very refreshing thing. It changes the atmosphere in the room a lot, and it kind of gets people interested in, if I had just talked to you about this and told you this information, it would have gone through like lots of the other information that I've done that you hear and you're like, okay, and then it goes on. But this, I'm pretty sure, tonight at the dinner table, if somebody asked you, you'll remember this. And this one is especially fun because usually there will be people that, you know, like people that really know how to use mirrors, and they're like, no, that's not true. I'm sure that's not true. And so in this case, I often have the mirror up there, and you can do it. And it is kind of surprising, and it's a fun way that these can be used. So let's do one more example, just so we're not too physics biased here, something we all can relate to, and that is how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And I don't know, it might be that we have to censor this and we can't put it on the web. We'll have to see if we violate anything. But this is a real question. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Many of us have heard a commercial about that. So this one here, go ahead. You got choices between 200, 200,000, or kind of some hope for humanity that we'll never know the answer. It'll remain a mystery. And go ahead, and I want you to tell the person next to you at least what you're going to vote and why you're going to vote it. Get a little... $20,000. Yeah.
He really looks good, doesn't
All right, that's probably enough time to go. We've got 13 votes in. We have a very nice spread, and yeah, I guess I'll stop letting you change your vote now too. Yeah, so I mean, I think all these are reasonable answers. 200,000 is pretty big. I guess I would have thought this was the answer, the E, that nobody would ever do this, but
know somebody's done it though. I mean,
exactly. You do. You are exactly right. So you, like in psychology or social science, maybe. You're in law. Oh, okay. Now I'm a little more nervous about this whole thing. Well, somebody has done it, and a colleague of mine, Matt Sellen, we have an outreach program, a physics fan thing. People can ask questions and enter information. And the amazing thing is somebody did do this, and they wrote in saying they did it, and it was very scientific. They pushed a keyboard and it counted how many licks, and he was very, very careful. So the amazing thing is not that he did it once and got 2,247 licks, but this person did it a second time. Right, so we even have an error estimate on this. And I'm impressed. They differed by only 1%, right, the number of licks. So now there's some other useful information we have for the dinner table tonight. It turns out it's about 2,000. Yes, sir.
I have a technical question. Are you controlling the PowerPoint with your clicker?
I am.
You have something hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
So as the instructor, you've got a different functionality?
I do have different functionality, and I'll mention that in a little bit later in the talk, but it's exactly right that this is one of the nice things about the iClicker system. It's one of the nice things when you make it yourself, you get to do whatever you want. And I would like to pretend this was my idea. Usually I do, but since this is on the web, I feel I have to be honest. And in fact, it was somebody that was using the clicker system, and we originally had it set up so you could start and stop polling with this. I mean, it's RF, it could control it. They said, well, why not let us control the computer with it too? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And so we could, and we just did it. And so, in fact, yeah, so there's the couple buttons that control our software, but then they also do like the right arrow and left arrow keys, which in PowerPoint advances and sends it back. So yeah, and that, you know, I love that idea. I wish it would have been mine.
That's on the instructor's remote?
That's on the instructor's remote. So yeah, we don't let the students control. Say, go back, I have a question. But well,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, that's good. Thanks for the question. So basically, what happened is we heard this thing from Eric Mazur about peer instruction. We implemented it. There were some other systems. We tried doing it. We tried using flashcards, raising hands, yelling, and then a few other electronic systems. We wired our whole room so you could plug their calculators in. We tried it all. We were totally addicted to this idea. I mean, once you do it, this is the danger. Once you do this with your classroom, it's nearly impossible to teach without doing it. In fact, you know, that was those of you here that were here early kind of saw me panicking about that maybe this would just be web and there wouldn't be people here, and I have no idea. I think I would fail miserably speaking that way because you kind of get used to getting this feedback, and it would be hard for me to give a talk without it. So we were addicted to it, but the systems that we had didn't work, okay? And so we had to do it, but the students were complaining we were having problems, and you know, basically physicists are arrogant, I guess I can say that, and so we just said, well, we'll just build it ourselves. And in fact, we did, and so...
They didn't work.
What's that?
What do you mean that they didn't work?
Well, what I meant is, yeah, that's the perfect question. What do I mean that they didn't work? I mean they basically worked. Like 95% of the time they worked, but the early ones we did, which was a wired system, and they plugged their calculator in. We liked that. They didn't have to buy anything. They plugged their calculator in. We paid lots of money to wire the room, but it was us, not the students. But it was a lot of work for them to, like lots of things to log in and to vote. And the vote usually got through, but it kind of took a little while, and then it would wait. And so what we found out is that the students were thinking hard about the technology and not about the class. And then they were getting frustrated if, you know, of course, if they get 95% on an exam, that's an A. But if your thing works 95% of the time, then that's an F, and they got very frustrated. So we were spending a lot of time kind of keeping the students happy and not getting frustrated with the technology. So that's what I mean by it. And so we said we'd make our own, and then lots of other people said, oh yeah, I'd like that too. And so we needed to be able to make a lot of them. And we got very, very fortunate to partner with Macmillan Publishing. And again, I'm nervous with this all being on the web, but in general, I don't have the warmest feelings about publishing. I was very, very nervous about this. But we did it, and I can say only good things about them. Lots of times we've said, look, I know you're going to make less money this way, but this is the right way to do it. And they haven't given us any trouble, and they've just done it. So at least they get some good PR out of it if they're not getting money out of it. So that's kind of how this whole thing came about. And our philosophy, just what you said, was basically that we want the technology should not get in the way of the teaching. Okay? And that's really what we are having trouble with the other systems. So, you know, here we go. Make it very simple. It's basically, I think that's basically sums it all up. And then what it means to be simple has lots of caveats. But essentially, we have, as faculty, we have all the constraints. We know exactly what our constraints are, and they're numerous. And so we tried to make a system that worked well within all those different constraints. And the other thing was to make it really, really well. Another anecdote, the first version that we made of this, we did it in a slightly different way. I mean, there's a radio frequency one, but we made it so that when you push the button, it didn't actually vote. It weighted the base unit had to go out and ask each clicker, what did you vote, what did you vote, what did you vote? We thought that was, I don't know, a sensible way to do it. And he could go pretty quick. And so we thought, well, that's fine. Maybe it would take 2 seconds to collect all the votes from a 200 student class, or maybe 3 seconds. And so we did that. And what happened is, so the students would push a button, a light would come on to say the button was pushed. And then when the vote was actually transmitted, it would turn green, meaning you had it, just the way this one works here. But it could take 1 or 2 seconds. And I think this is a generational thing. The 7-minute thing isn't generational, but the students that we have, there's nothing that you push and you wait 2 seconds for something to happen. So what they would do is they would push the button, and then the one light would come on, but the green light wouldn't go on. It didn't happen. They go, oh, it's not transmitting. Well, probably I just need to give it a bing. So they'd wave their thing through the air, so that it could transmit down to the base, which it turns out takes about 2 seconds, and then the vote would go through. So they got into a routine where you'd say vote, and they'd push the button, and they'd wave it, and it was like being at a rock concert or something, everybody doing this. And it was like really funny and amusing, but then quickly what we realized is they're thinking about the clicker again. They're not thinking about the mirror or the physics. They're thinking about, is my vote getting in? And that's exactly what we don't have. And so what happens is when you push your button now, you will immediately get a green light or a red light, and there's no waiting involved. I mean, it happens in a tiny fraction of a second. And so if you get the red light, don't wait. Push again or tell the instructor to turn it on. So it's one example. And it's an example of something that it's not like we knew it. We just did it wrong and then learned from our mistake. A question that often comes up at this point is, how do I put my questions into this? How, if I want to ask a question, how do I author these questions in there? And the answer is, you don't do anything. Okay? And this is another thing where just as faculty, you kind of know, right? You don't have any extra time to learn a new presentation software system or something like that. And so, I mean, this is PowerPoint. You probably all recognize PowerPoint. But if you want to use Keynote or Word or XML or PDF, anything like that, it doesn't matter because the software doesn't need to know about the question. I control it with this. I start accepting votes. I stop accepting votes. It just counts them. That's all it has to do. So you can author however you want to author your questions. The one thing that the software does do that's kind of useful is that when I push start to take the question, it takes a picture of what's on the screen. So that later if I want to go back and say, oh, 37% answered A, 65% answered B, what was the question? Well, you can see what was on the screen at that time, and so that's useful for it. But there's no software to learn, essentially, and I think that's an important point. So not surprisingly, this works. These are results from my class, but in fact, these are being used across the country now, and you basically see the same results everywhere. The students really like it. So this is sort of a Likert kind of scale thing here where we go from great to terrible. 93% like this in their class. And I should contrast that. I always do these surveys, do you want more examples, less examples, more demos, less demos, faster, slower. Always, they're kind of these bell shapes. Some people want faster, some slower, some more, some less. I don't have another example where it's just been so skewed that everybody thinks this is a good thing. So it's nice that the students like it, and that's a good thing. I mean, just students liking it, I think, is a good plus. But it's even better than that. This is Eric Mazur from Harvard, which is the guy I said that talked to us about peer instruction. He did a very nice study where he took his class, and some of them he had to do peer instruction before the demos, and some of them he just did the demos. He didn't do the peer instruction. And he looked at how they did on an exam, on identical questions on the exam. And actually, he switched the group. So half the semester you were peer instruction, half the semester you weren't. And he saw really impressive gains in how they did on the exams based on whether they did the peer instruction or not. So students like it, and they learn more. I mean, this is fabulous. This is all good news. Another nice thing is when you ask the students why they like it for exactly the reasons we want them to like it. I mean, they seem to understand what's helping them. They like to participate in the class. They like to see how other people are thinking about it. It's all very, very good thing. And one thing that that seemed intuitive to me, at least when we did this, is you don't have to feel stupid if your answer is wrong. So the one thing, calling on people to get them to participate is always a bit of a scary thing in a large lecture, because if you get it wrong, you can feel really stupid about it. And this way, you can see what other people are thinking. And a big surprise I had when I was using this in my class, so I'm teaching pre-meds, and they're really, really bright students, but I'm teaching them physics, so they're pretty intimidated by it. And usually the class, they're studious, but it was quiet. A couple people would ask questions or answer questions. When I started using this peer instruction and clickers, and they could see that a bunch of other people didn't understand it too, a lot more questions came out. People were all of a sudden more comfortable to ask questions, and so the lecture was really qualitatively different. And that's one of the reasons I say I'm sort of addicted to it now, because it's just much more fun teaching when the students are comfortable talking. So again, these results are universal. They're not unique to Illinois. In fact, the one was from Harvard, but all across the country now people are getting these. Another way you can look at it, I had the one set, if you look at these 7 principles of good practice, which is a common thing if you have a Center for Teaching Excellence, almost all of us. Those are on your website. Yeah, I think they're kind of universally accepted as good things, maybe not the only good things. And if you go through all these different items, you can basically see how the clicker, or doing this peer instruction with clickers, is going to facilitate them. Student cooperation, clearly you're having them talk to each other, it's going on. Active learning, we're definitely doing that. Prompt feedback, right during the lecture, you're finding out if you're with it or not. Time on task, a lot, because you can give them credit. They tend to come to lecture more if you give them credit for your expectations and your questions. And so, again, it's not surprising that this should work. I mean, it's kind of like right over the plate in terms of what we think helps people learn. So at this point, hopefully, the question is, well, why wouldn't you use clickers? Right? I mean, everything's so great. It's baseball and apple pie or something. But I think there are some good reasons not to use clickers, and we should think about them carefully before you decide to use them in your class. I think they're the classic problems with why one wouldn't do anything, and those are time and money. And so by time, I'm thinking about there's some prep time. You don't need to use little software, but if you're not currently asking questions, you have to take time to figure out what questions you want to ask. So that's one item. I think an even harder one for faculty is this class time. Most of us feel like, oh, we have so much to cover. It's not like, oh, class finishes 10 minutes early, what am I going to talk about? It's like there's not enough time. Obviously, if you're stopping and giving students a chance to talk, you have to cut something out, and it's a very I think it's a good thing. Students learn more from doing it, but it's difficult in deciding what to cut out, and just cutting stuff out is difficult. And then administrative, and I'm going to recommend, if you do this, that you do give some students some credit for participating. That seems to be helpful. Somehow you have to do that, and so you want to have a system. You want to have an easy way to do this, because you don't want it consuming a bunch of your time when you're trying to do that. Money. So as I say, this was developed by faculty. So we realize the faculty don't have any money. It's not going to be faculty money, but still you're going to take money from the students, right? They have to buy their system, and students are willing to do it, and we've seen them happy doing it if they see it's useful. Right? But if they just feel like it's an attendance-taking device, they're not going to like it at all. And the last one, you might be surprised to see me say, technology. Right? I'm a physics professor. I helped invent these things. Roberto and I, on the drive down, I got this new GPS device, and I was totally geeking out on it. I love technology everywhere, except in the classroom. In fact, I'm very old-fashioned with that, and in general, if there's something that I think is really cool, then I don't want it in my classroom. In general, it's a bad idea, I think, to have in the classroom. And so, technology, it can get in the way. And we saw it get in the way with our first things. So I think anytime you introduce something new, it should be because you need it, not because, oh, this would be cool. And so, you should make sure your other motivations kind of justify adding that technology. So if you're thinking about doing this, sort of some advice or basic guidelines, and some of these look more like rules. Of course, every rule has its exception. That's what makes it a good rule, except the first one. This one I don't think. Think carefully about your objectives. Okay, and so what I mean by that is when you ask a question, when you design a question, that's getting very high priority in your class. So that Tootsie Pop question probably wasn't a great question. You know, I did it to be entertaining, which can be kind of fun. But really, you want it to be the most important things in the lecture because you're putting a huge emphasis on that. So you want to think carefully about those. It's a good idea to use it every lecture if you're going to use it. I mean, the students pay. They don't get charged extra for using it more. And especially if you're giving credit, and then you kind of do it like randomly, like a pop quiz kind of thing. Well, all of a sudden, the student who forgets it that one day, they end up feeling bad about it and getting bad things. So just using it consistently is a good idea. As I say, giving some credit is a good idea. A rule of thumb is 3 to 5 questions per hour. Again, this can get broken a lot. There should be exceptions, but kind of when you're generally thinking, throw in a few, basically for resetting the clock and stuff like that. And the final point here is higher level questions. And when I say that, I'm not meaning harder questions. I'm kind of thinking along Bloom's taxonomy kind of thing, where not a recall question or a fact question, but more of a synthesis, something that can promote discussion, because that's really what you want is some discussion out of it. And so that doesn't mean you never ask a lower level question, but in general, that's what the students seem to value the most. Yes?
Credit a couple of times. Can you give an example of how you do that?
Yes. So I would give a very specific example of I think a reasonable way to start giving credit. This is how I did it at first, and then you can modify from there. But my course has 27 lectures, and what I did is I said you get a point for each lecture you come to a maximum of 25 points. So if you come to all 27 lectures, in principle it would add up to 27 points, but I'm going to throw 2 out. Okay, I'm not scaling it. And in fact, there were lectures on days of exams when people tend to skip where I'd actually make it worth 2 points. And so the idea behind this, and this is out of 1,000, so this is 25 out of 1,000 points. So all 25 points is a difference of about, like, it takes you from like a B+ to an A-, or it's about a third of a grade if you missed all of them or got all of them. But the other thing that's important about this is if they miss one, it's no big deal. And in fact, if they're sick or something and they miss one, I say, well, that's one of your free ones then. And because you don't want this to be an administrative nightmare. You just kind of want it to be simple, or, oh, I forgot it, or my roommate took it, or the batteries died, or whatever. You don't want to have to deal with it, basically. And so I think something low like that, it doesn't need to be a lot of credit, but a little reward and kind of low stakes is one example. Go on.
So this registers who?
What?
This will register who is using it.
Oh, excellent question. So how do I give credit? Yeah, I don't just pass around a sheet and make them sign it when they do it. So if you look at the back of your clicker,
The white ones. Is that better?
the white ones, yeah. Look at the back of your white ones. The students will buy white ones. The big difference between the blue ones and the white ones is the color. Okay, and the students buy the white ones. We usually give the blue ones to the instructor. That way, like, if they couldn't be stolen so easily or something like that. It's easy to keep track of yours. But there's a number on the back. And so every time you vote, it sends 2 pieces of information. One is this number, and the other is this letter, the letter that you voted. And so that's all stored in a record, and then we can coordinate those. The typical way is they go on a website and they register. They say, this number belongs to me. And then we have software that will pull that out of the database and assign them for you. So I was thinking this afternoon there's another talk, and then I was going to go into more of the details about that then, if that works out okay for everybody. Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, so now I'm going to make you work a little bit. In those in the studio audience, I guess. Roberto's going to pass something out, and what I want you to do, you're not going to vote on these right now. What I actually want you to do is take a couple of minutes and think, here are some common and I think very good motivations for using clickers. And what I'd like you to do is go through each one of these and rate it sort of on a Likert kind of scale, from 1 being very important through 5 being irrelevant, for these different reasons that you would consider using iClickers, or not iClickers, but clickers in general, this peer instruction in your classroom. And you can call them all 1s and you can call them all 5s. I mean, if they're all 5s, then there's a good chance you don't want to use these in your class. And then we're going to go through and we're going to talk about the different ones as time permits. Okay, so Roberto, oh, they're already out. Wow, fast.
Yeah, it's very quick.
Wow, very quick. Okay, so go ahead and fill those out. I guess if you're working online, you can do the same thing too, because you can see the options. And yeah, you don't have to vote. You don't have to vote yet. I just want you to take a couple minutes and think through stuff. But you guys don't have these sheets.
Yeah, we have them.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you don't? Oh, you do. You need one, Richie? Richie needs one, sorry.
Good. Looks like you looked at the answer sheet. No, I'm just kidding. These are similar to my motivations. So, but you've used these a bit, right?
And then there is that.
Okay, so now you've had a couple minutes. Even if you didn't get it done, you can go through. And at this point, I just wanted to be a little bit more flexible. That's why I'm glad there's several of you here, so you can help guide this. And we can kind of talk maybe a little bit about how, if this is your motivation for using the clickers, some things that you should think about in terms of implementing them. And so I doubt we'll go through all of them in the time that we have. So I thought maybe what we'd do is just go through whatever one you think is most important. So I guess it doesn't have to be what you voted number 1 on. Whichever one of these you would like us to talk about first, go ahead and vote that, and then and we'll go based on the vote. We'll go to that section. Okay. All right, I'll give you just a few more seconds to get your votes in, but it seems pretty clear what people are interested in. And
So you're looking at something.
oh yeah, you are so observant. You've caught all of my tricks. So I'll let you keep voting for a second while I talk about this. This base that's connected by USB to the computer, that's how the votes get into the computer. One thing that's on it is an LCD screen. And what happens is, as the votes are coming in, looks like I just lost it for a second there. As the votes are coming in, what happens is this lights up with the number, or it's the number of people that have voted, but also the percentage that have voted A, B, C, D, and E, since those are the only choices. So as the things come in, I can actually see what fraction have voted the different things. And this is something that was in that original system we tried, the fanciest one. It was called Class Talk, that I loved. And then when I tried newer ones, they didn't have it. And what happens is, if you see at the same time the students do, like that they all got it wrong or they all got it right, it gives you very little time to prepare what to say next. And I had a couple of embarrassing moments when, I'm like, what? You all got it wrong. That's stupid. I'm like, oh no, you don't call your students stupid. That's bad. And so usually, as the votes are coming in, I kind of take a glance at this. In this kind also, I was checking it out to think, okay, where am I going to be going on this one next, just so you can kind of think of your intro. So it's nice for that. It's also useful, especially in larger classes, when you have hundreds of votes coming in after the first 50, it's pretty clear how it's going to go. But if they're all getting it wrong, like you see everybody voting the wrong thing right away, you don't give them the whole 3 minutes or something. You can say, oh, okay, what are you thinking about here? Because probably they're just misinterpreting the question, and you can use the time better. So yeah, so this is one of our secrets. This goes with the instructor remote, is you can see the results as they're coming in. So let's see if I can see the results here. Let's see here. Oops, sorry. Could not find iClicker. Okay, yeah. So I unplugged my iClicker. So let me.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Oh, there we go. Let me see if I can get it to come back. Otherwise, I can. There we go.
Oh, there's that technology
There we go.
getting in the way.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's the technology. That's exactly the thing. I completely agree, and I hate that in lecture when that happens. This thing with it coming out doesn't happen very often, but in general. So this is what I'd seen before. Good. I'm glad it didn't change when I unplugged it, and plugged it back in. 50% of the people are going with C, which is to look at assessment, and that is in fact a great thing to look at. So let me go to assessment here. And so I'm going to separate this into two pieces, into formative assessment and summative assessment. And those are fancy words people use, but formative assessment is basically telling the student, giving the student information about where they're at, okay, so that they can modify their study or help know where they're going. And I was looking, and I don't have the reference up here. I should get the reference up here. But there was like a meta-analysis of all the different interventions people do to improve student learning. There's lots of different things they do. This isn't just in physics or with clickers, but this is sort of a global thing with education research. And what they find out is that the thing that has the largest effect size, the biggest improvement in student understanding, can actually be attributed to formative assessment. It's essentially letting the student know where their weaknesses are so that they can work on that area. Okay, give them feedback. And so I think this idea of formative assessment is absolutely, it's a good reason to use this. I think it's one of the reasons that Mazur and stuff saw improvements in their work. And so this was something that I had mentioned earlier, but in terms of, if this is one of your goals, and I think it's a great thing to have as your goals if you've decided to use these, and that is when you think about your clicker questions, if you're going to get asked 3 of them, make sure they're the key points, because students are going to focus on those. They're going to think that's what's important in your course. And so, it would be bad if you gave them just a bunch of Tootsie Pop questions, and that's what they thought was important, and then on the exam you ask them about mirrors or something. And so you want those things to be the same. Okay, and the other type of assessment, which people are often quite interested in, is the summative, which I'm going to call, it's kind of to give the grade. It's to say, what do you know? Not for you to learn more, but this is your grade. And a great thing for this is like the reading quiz. So I think when people come to lecture, the lecture can be better if the students come prepared. They can learn more. And a good way to do that is something like a reading quiz, where you just ask them hopefully some simple questions about it. People say, clickers are a great way to do that. It makes me very nervous, though. I think there's a good chance of having a bad experience when you do this for lots of reasons. These are, if you start using this for high stakes testing, or I'm going to say something that can really change their grade on one day in class or a couple of days in class, you can cheat, right? You can have 2 of these. In fact, I see somebody in the audience right now that's been clicking with more than 1 of these. And they can do it, and even for this other one, students come into my class, there's, 400 students in my class this semester. You'll see a couple of them that have 2 clickers. It's not a big deal. Usually I just talk to them and say, you shouldn't do that. Some people get really upset about it. But if you start doing that for higher stakes testing, it could be a real problem, right? There would be real motivation to cheat, and it would have a real consequences if people did it. And so So I'm not saying never do this, but I'm just saying, you know, be careful. This wouldn't be my first use of them. I would be very cautious when doing this. Think things through, very careful, because bad things can happen. And there's been some great examples of bad things happening. Oh, okay, so again, this is being recorded, so I got to be careful. I can't say the school, but there was a school and that was using a clicker system, and they were doing this testing with it, and they ended up expelling a bunch of people. My favorite thing was it was a business ethics course, and people were bringing clickers in, you know, a bunch of them, and voting for the other people. And so, and what they thought is, they said, well, it didn't feel like real cheating because you know these are people that wouldn't have on a pencil and paper, they wouldn't have looked at somebody else's things, but it just feel like so. I would avoid this. I don't think. Just be careful with that one. Okay, so let me click and go back here to the main thing. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up, because when I pulled this thing out, it stopped listening to my instructor remote. So now you can see how this program gets started up. Just come out of this mode for a second. There we go. So I'll restart the program. All right, and come back here. Okay, so we talked about assessment here, so it's kind of been grayed out for us. And so the next thing we do is we can just figure out what it is we should talk about next. So I guess technically you can still vote for C, but I won't pay attention to that one. So A, B, or D, I guess, would be the primary ones. E we can go to at the end if we want. It shows things like how you actually give grades and stuff like that. You know, technically how you match these things up, and so we can do the tutorial sometime if people want. Okay, we got the results in, and it looks like we're going pretty heavy for D. Let's see if my LCD was right. Yep, we're going pretty heavy for D. So engagement, let's just click. I'll stop listening to your votes and go straight to engagement here. All right. So the engagement thing I like a lot. It's fun. It's kind of waking people up. I feel it's a lot of the peer instruction stuff, and so it's a great motivation. And the nice thing about the engagement is it's hard to mess it up. Kind of no matter what you do, when you get people to do that, even the Tootsie Pop question kind of pulls them in for engagement. As we saw, the Missouri results showing that this helped, that they did better when we did this sort of thing. Another fun thing you can do is you can survey students, and this is a technique I haven't used. I only used it actually once in my physics course, and it was for a presidential election. I was just curious, you know, where my students were at and if I needed to fail them all or not. And so I asked them to do it, but then of course there is this issue about knowing what people are going to vote and stuff. And so what I did to make it anonymous, I said just swap your clicker with the person next to you and then vote. And so now I have no idea who voted what, right? Because it's not assigned to the right person, and they swap it back. And you can get interesting information. But lots of places like health sciences, I know in psychology they do it a lot where they'll say something, you know, how many of you know somebody who has had a mental illness or something that, you know, people weren't all going to raise their hand. But, you know, on this thing they do it, and there's often these things that are really, really surprising. I know one is how many know somebody who's been sexually assaulted, where it always seems like a distant thing, but it turns out it's a really high percentage, and you can have some dramatic results. You can also use those to start discussions and things like that. And so this is surveying the students, I think, is a fabulous use for these things. And then data for analysis. I know statistics classes do this a lot, but in general courses, it's a great way you can get data by just polling your students, right, who are in the classroom, and you can work with that to make it very real and personal for them. So the engagement one, really my only advice, I haven't really heard of people ever having problems with this, where the reading quiz is one. I have heard of problems coming up. The engagement one, basically, I just say have fun, try stuff. And people have tried lots of creative and interesting things, and in general, it works well. Yes? Oh, no.
Stretching.
Okay. And so this is a great thing to do. All right, let's go back home. I guess we're going to crank through these. Okay, so your choices are becoming fewer. So now we're down to attendance, promoting discussion, or seeing how this thing works in general. And we're going to go, all right, I think I know the answer already, so I'll just stop that. I'll display it just for the heck of it. But yeah, so we're down to discussion. Good. Promoting discussion is also good. And some data on this comes from the University of Colorado at Boulder. And they did a nice thing. They actually have adopted them campus-wide as their thing. And so basically all the students have them. It's not quite true. And they use them in a lot of classes. And then they did a survey to see, kind of spread out over all the classes. They surveyed both the students and the faculty, about the clicker use, and did you like it, did you hate it? And then they asked them questions. How was it used? Was it used to give reading quizzes? Was it used to promote discussion, to ask factual questions? And in general, people like the clickers, and a bit of this, I think, well, people like them, but it's a little bit unfair because, the faculty who adopt these things are usually, at this point, they're all kind of the go-getters, and in general, some of these faculties, I swear, if you gave them a piece of toast, they would turn it into a great teaching tool. So it's not completely fair, but they're generally positive. But the thing that you did see the best correlation with was actually the faculty that used it to promote discussion. That's why I said these higher level questions as opposed to factual. Those are the students that tend to appreciate the value of these more. And I find that remarkable because, in fact, we believe that that is actually what helps them learn more, too. And oftentimes, we feel like students don't actually know what's helping them learn a lot. But in this case, it seems like they're right on. So peer instruction, of course, is exactly this. That's the whole basis for it. We went through that. And this comment here was, again, going back to in my lectures where, once you get the students talking and you can switch their mode, it really, really changes the whole atmosphere in the lecture. It breaks down some of those barriers, and, I think, and the students seem to think also, makes for a much more positive learning experience. And that. So kind of in order to do this, I guess maybe the one comment is that if you're going to do this, you need to choose questions that it makes sense to discuss. So in fact, the mere question, you could say, well, that's a fact. That's not a discussion question. And it certainly depends on the context. But in fact, in the context of physics, it was, nobody had memorized it, or some people had, but they still had the tools to reason through and kind of draw it out, draw it closer and further away, and it would promote discussion. The Tootsie Pop one, I don't know, probably. Maybe there's a course where you make that a discussion one. That's a little bit of a factual or a trivial thing. I'm not promoting that as the best question ever. Maybe that was an example of something you wouldn't want. But by giving them these sort of synthesis types questions, you promote discussion. The students like that. And I think it has a really, really high value. And in fact, yeah, it's something I'm pretty excited about. When I think about the kind of clickers being able to change classrooms, all these other things are good. But you kind of, I don't know, in my heart, you kind of like the thought of students not just teaching them to memorize and stuff like that, but promoting this ability to do these higher level skills.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
If it's established that formative assessment has this substantial effect on
Yes.
outcome,
Yes.
then how does anybody know that peer instruction has any importance?
Right. That's a fabulous question. How do you disentangle the, why are students, like that Missouri one, the students perform better, okay, and you can look at the study. I think it's pretty clean. They did. And then how do you attribute it to peer instruction? And I think that's fair. I don't think it's been disentangled. I mean, I think we're just now, there's a lot of people that have used clickers. That's one of the only studies I've seen that actually showed students learning more. Just because, you know, doing the study is a lot of work, right? He divided the class up into these different things. You know, usually people adopt it or they don't, and then they get their results. And so disentangling it from peer instruction to the others, I think, is hard. What we can say is in terms of what the students like, in that they like the peer instruction piece of it. They like the being able to talk to each other and promote it that way. But you could be saying the key is that it's formative, that it's just they're getting feedback about what's important and what they know and they don't know. Actually, the way this study worked, it would be hard to imagine that it was formative assessment so much, because in both cases, this study, the details of it are, it was really based on the lecture demonstrations. And so, you know, in physics, we do a lot of these, of course. And so, in both cases, he would describe the setup. And in one case, he had the students predict what the outcome was going to be and talk about it and then do it. And in the other case, he just said, you know, here it is, and then he would do it, and they would see the outcome and then explain why it did what it did. And so, I mean, yeah, you could put it into formative assessment, because by the students committing to what they think the answer is, it helps them understand where their weaknesses are. Yeah, I would say the jury's out, that it could really be coming from formative assessment, but this is a mechanism for providing that and encouraging students to get it. Okay, that's great. Are there any other?
But you could imagine, easily imagine using the clickers, but not having the discussion. Everybody will sit silently worrying in a solitary fashion about the problem, voting. And so you could wipe out the peer instruction and see if you get the same effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could do that study. That study wasn't done in this course yet. Yes, and well, yet, and there's also right. It's fair enough for me. It would be hard pressed to get me to do that study, because you know, always, like, I'm pretty willing to do stuff to students if I don't know, which is better. I actually feel like all these other things about talking and the communion, that just seems right to me, and so I would have to really want to disentangle the two before I did it. Yeah, you had a comment.
Well, I was just going to say that I use the clickers in my classroom, but I don't engage in much peer instruction, because I teach a subject that doesn't lend itself to that.
Okay.
I teach legal research to law students, and they just need to know the answers. I mean, there's not much discussion about how to use a digest. You just need to know how to use it. And so I tend to use the low-level recall kind of questions, and they don't discuss them. But a lot of the other things that you've talked about are important, that you use it to highlight the most important things that you want to get across in the class. By the end of the class, these are the 4 or 5 things I want them to absolutely know, and that's what I use the clickers to test. So I think there's use for clickers even if you don't teach a subject where you think they need to discuss to come up with the right answer.
Yeah, fabulous. So I'm glad you brought that up, and your final statement makes me think that you're happy with using them, that you feel like it's been a benefit to your course. Yes, perfect. So this is exactly, and I should emphasize it more. When I said these basic guidelines, I mean, I still believe the basic guidelines, but I believe the exceptions are many, and it's just, I just want you to think, you know, like, if you don't think about it, just try these things, but if you have a reason not to, you know, you go beyond it. And there are many examples, and I also have people who use them no credit. They just have a bucket of these things, people pick them up, they use them. Yeah.
The law school as a whole hasn't adopted clickers, so there's no reason for the students to buy a clicker for a 1-hour course. So we've just bought some, and we give them to them. We actually have more instructors adopting it, so we may eventually require them to buy them, but we don't now. So I don't use it for attendance. I usually have a small enough class I can see they're all there.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And also, I would say at the University of Illinois, probably one of the best clicker users. She's in the biology department, and also she doesn't. She just has a bucket, and they come up, and so and that is great. But I've seen people that have had trouble. In fact, I myself have had trouble when I didn't give credit with students saying, well, you know, I'm not going to bother bringing it in. Or even when I have 200 students, it just takes time to pick it up and send it back. And they're like, well, you know, I'm not going to do it. And so there are absolutely exceptions. And in fact, as I say, the early clicker adopters are often the exceptions. And so some of these rules, you should be very willing to violate their guidelines. They're not meant to be that. So thanks so much for bringing that example up. Others? All right. So, okay. Oh, there we go. And so the last thing is attendance. So let me just go through that right now. Nobody was too excited about it. And that's good, because what I'd like to comment is this is the thing that you get complaints with clickers and students from, or this is the one that we've seen the most, is people saying, look, the professor is just trying to force me to come to class, okay, and I don't need to come to class to do this. And so I think it's good to give points for attendance. Don't get me wrong. I think that's good. And I hope, I mean, we all try to make our lectures useful so that it has educational benefit. But if the students feel it's just like an electronic, you know, tag because you're too lazy to take attendance the other way or something like that, they really resent it. They're like, you know, you made me pay $30 so you could tell if I came to a lecture or not. And so we need to be really sensitive to it. And one of the things that was in your handout, there's one side that said rate these things. The other side had some references. And a lot of the reason I was motivating for this is that if you choose to use these, I think it's very important to communicate to the students why you're using them. Okay? And that it's not just so that you can make sure, you know, for your vanity because you want 200 students out there hanging on your every word. Okay, because I mean, that isn't the reason for using them. It's not a good motivation. I think it's good to give them credit for participating, I do, but they need to understand that the real thing is to get them involved, to give them formative assessment. You know, you don't have to do the pure instruction, but that we have seen these things improve students' learning and can make the lectures more beneficial. And so it's really, really good to communicate this to the students. And in fact, I'm not such a Facebook person, but I was just drawn to this Facebook thing because we kind of try to monitor people's feelings about iClickers and stuff and how's it going up. And then there are like groups about iClicker in Facebook, it turns out. And you know, there was one nice group that wants to make it the University of Illinois' mascot because we have trouble with our our symbol. Okay, see, there's the problem right there. But then when you look at people that are upset about it, you know, it's like they're just using it for attendance. You know, they ask me one question, are you here? And they don't get it. And so don't, you know, if that's your thing for attendance, it's not a good use of them. In fact, it'll have a negative impact because the students will just resent that you're making them come and that you made them buy the thing.
How much, yes, but supposing the model was different and they were loaned the clicker and at no cost, how much of a factor is that in that negative assessment? In their negative opinion?
It's a great question, and I don't know exactly, but my guess is that it isn't. I mean, it's easy to complain about the money, but my guess is the real complaint is being forced to go to the classroom because, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's $30 and you can sell it back. It's $15. I mean, compared to their expenses, I don't think that in itself is a legitimate thing. But people definitely, and actually a lot of faculty I know feel strongly like, you know, they didn't have to go to lectures and they did well, so why make their students go to lecture? And they feel, and so that's part of your point systems, and that's why, like in my course, the way it's set up, you could still get an A+ in my course and never come to a lecture, even though you get points for doing this. Of course, it's harder. You have to do a lot better in all the other components, But you know, if you're so good you don't need it, that's fine.
It's also maybe you have to keep up with it. You have to remember to have it. You're worried that the battery may go down. And I think that those would be things that would affect the students' frustration if they didn't see the learning benefit.
Right, exactly. I think in general it's a good idea. Students need to understand, you know, why we're trying to do things and try to help them. The battery going dead thing isn't such a real consideration. It actually has a low battery light, and then you got like 10 lectures left after it comes on. But people do forget it. Or the other one that happens on campuses where there's more and more, they bring their roommates, right? They look the same. And so they'll grab their roommates by accident, and so there can be extra stress, right? And extra stress can be hard. That's good. All right, any other comments? Then I think, well, you can tell me what to do. At this point, it seems like reasonable to wrap things up instead of going through, trying to go through a tutorial here. And at this point, we'll do that.
Try to have a few minutes after the official period for folks to ask questions.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. Great.
So, but we have been pretty interactive, I think, all along. So maybe if there's questions have been addressed. I don't know if there's any.
Yes.
We do have some distance ed courses. Does this function with that sort of system?
Oh, that's a great question. Now, when you say distance ed, are you talking about, is there like a satellite classroom where a bunch of people are in the classroom, or is it like they're at home doing it?
Satellite classroom.
Satellite classroom. So well, in both cases, the answer is at this instant in time, we can't support that, but soon the plan would be if you were in a satellite classroom. So maybe I'm teaching here, and then there's another classroom at a community college or something, geographically separate, that they would set up a base in there, and then as long as there's an internet connection between the two, that base would be controlled by me here, and so I would collect all those votes too. So that's something that we definitely want to be able to support in the near future, and technologically it's not huge. We just have to implement it. So right now we don't, but hopefully in the near future.
And the other question was, I heard from a colleague when I said I was coming to this that there's a version that allows numerical input. Is that just a competitor, or is that a different version
Yeah,
of this?
That's a really good question. Is what about, well, I'm going to call it alphanumeric input. In fact, some people just want to put numbers, but some want you to give a spelling test or something as an example. And we don't. We explicitly have only given these options A through E. There are other versions that allow you, I mean, not other versions of our system. There are competing systems that offer more complex entries as for information. And we made the choice not to go in that direction, mainly because of this simplicity thing. So at first you say, well, you can do both. Why not have both? And this is something that I thank Macmillan for putting up with us on this. And the reason is, if you have that, you're going to be tempted to use it. And if you look at all the motivations and objectives of this, they can usually be met just fine with this. It's not that there aren't any good numeric questions you could ask, but usually you can put it in this format and you get the simplicity down, and it's really valuable. And in fact, there's other interesting stories about schools that have not adopted our system because a couple of faculty they said, I have to have that numeric. And now, so the school adopted a different system, and now these same faculty have dropped that system and are using ours. Of course, the technology folks are not happy about that because, you know, they're right. They're just like, you know, the simplicity is really worth a lot. It is.
Well, but
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But some of Missouri's own questions have 6 and 8 choices on them.
That's exactly right. So
there's content out there that I can't use with.
That's right. So
it's not a question of numeric input, just of a few more.
You could add a few more buttons, and I agree. There are examples where it would be nice to have 8 or something. But again, you know, all the time. So we think hard about these different things. It's not like it's so expensive to add 8 buttons. But you add 8 buttons, the buttons get smaller, they get more things. And really, we were also kind of guiding, it's not that there aren't good 8 questions, but in general, if you're giving 8 options, there needs to be a good reason for that, because I mean that means the student has to read through 8 different things, and in general I think we're well served by having fewer choices to go through as a general thing. So, and just like there are good numeric questions, I'm not saying there are none, but a lot of it was we wanted to keep things simple and kind of encourage people to do, in general, what we think is good pedagogy, and it does.
I'd like to interrupt and say, I think that was the purpose of this morning's lecture, for us was to all think about ways that these clickers can enhance classroom instruction. One of the things we'll be doing this afternoon at what time? 2 in the CTE is talking more about the specific technology and what it can do. Okay, so I'm going to. I think all these questions were relevant. I was wondering if are there any other questions about?
I was going to say I've used the clicker system before, and I do agree simplicity is much better because the students really struggle if you add a lot of choices or if the choices are long. Or I've had them input numbers before, and they really struggle with that because they don't know whether to put a 0 before their decimal and all of the, typing it all in. They have a hard time the more complicated it gets. So if it's simpler, they seem to be able to handle it better.
Anything from the back of the room?
Implicit in much of the discussion was that the students are buying the clickers. Are you familiar with any institutions in which the institution has been furnishing the clickers?
Yes.
How that changes the picture?
It's a good question. So we have an example here, right here, where the law, and they bought a bunch of them. I know of other departments that have done it at that level. I think there are schools where, and I'm not sure if Boulder does this or not, I should be careful, but we could ask them. It might be the case that in their fees they're given a clicker like their freshman year. I don't know if that is true or how it influences things. One thing that certainly happens is very quickly, this was another great statistic from Boulder. What was it? 3% of the classes used clickers, and 70% of the students used clickers. Okay, and so very quickly they're using it in multiple classes, and that's a nice thing, right? In that, if you're using it in 4 classes and it costs you $30, I mean, you feel better about it.
That requires some standardization across the campus.
Right, and so these are places that did standardize across the campus, and that is, I think that is a good thing to do. And so, if this campus has they standardized on it?
No.
No, you're deciding. So if your campus has a standard, you should go with it unless you have a very strong reason for not doing it, because of this deal with making students buy multiple clickers is really a tough thing for them. And I'm pretty sympathetic to that.
And USC hasn't said this is what we shall do. But the reason we invited these folks here that have developed the iClicker system is because we collected information from faculty. This seems to be the most popular one that's being used here at the university.
So this is not tied to a tax, then?
That is absolutely correct. It's not tied to anything. Yes, different textbooks are starting to offer, these types of questions, as a supplement to their things. But yeah, we want to be independent.
I think one of the benefits is that you can ask questions on the fly. You don't have to have anything prepared.
That's exactly right. And in the afternoon one, I mean, yeah. So this isn't meant to be a iClicker sales thing. So but I agree. We
You might
use
be able to do that with others too, but with this one, you definitely don't.
Well, I wondered that. So you could ask a question, yes or no, and just say A or B. A is yes and B is no.
Absolutely. And so there are two ways. There are 2 ways to do that. One is you can click something on the software and open up a text box, so you could type it in because it'll take a picture of the screen. The other way, and the way I use it, like this is a tablet, so you can just write on the screen.
You could write on the chalkboard.
You could write on the chalkboard. The disadvantage of writing on the chalkboard is when it takes a picture of the screen, it doesn't get the chalkboard. So if you want to go back at it and look at the results afterwards to modify, you don't have that information necessarily. But yes, anyway, that's
great.
okay.
Our time is up. If you're watching this online, please fill out the evaluation form that's online, because that's how we know that you watched it. Made it this far, then we really do want to have your feedback on this, and also anybody in the room, if you give us some feedback on the form, including how it could be improved and one or two topics you might like to have covered in the Center for Teaching Excellence seminar in the future. We'd appreciate it. So while you're doing that, you'll join me in thanking our speaker for coming to the ceremony today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Greg.